Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm showing 10 o'clock, but I'm not seeing Regent Periscope on here yet. Oh, there she is. All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Everyone would like to go ahead and call to order this meeting of the Board Academic Affairs Standing Committee. Welcome, everyone, to our first meeting of the fiscal year. I want to extend a warm welcome to Dr. Susan Bond, who joins us as the new provost at Pitt State. So welcome, Dr. Bond. Jennifer, if you would please do roll call of committee members to establish a quorum.
Regent Diana Mendoza.
Present.
Regent Alicia Johnston. Here. And Regent Nalima Perisker.
Good morning.
As all members are present, Madam Chair, there is a quorum.
Thank you, Jennifer. I just want to remind everyone that we are being recorded, and if you wish to speak, please state your name before speaking. And if you're not speaking, please mute your microphone so that we don't get any background noise. Okay, our first item of business is to approve the minutes from the June 18th, 2024 BASC meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion or changes to the minutes? All right, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
So aye, the motion carries and minutes are approved. Hey, as we proceed with the agenda, we don't have a very lengthy agenda for today. It doesn't look like we have any board consent items or board discussion items. So we will move straight to reports and updates. The first report is by Dr. Carla Wiscombe to report on the academic year 2023 high school post-secondary enrollments. Wiscombe?
Thank you, Regent Mendoza. This report is an overall summary of the opportunities that our system-wide institutions provide to high school students in the state. And I just want to thank Judd McCormick and his team and Cindy Ferrier and the data research and planning team. All of this information is on our website at all times. So if you haven't spent any time in KeyStats, I would encourage you to go there, and the next slide will give you a short summary of how to get there, because all of the information that I have is based off of the website. So once you go to data under the data tab on our homepage, and then go to KeyStats, and then it's the high school tab, and then I separate it by our system. You can look at each institution. Misty's report a little later will actually get into what each institution offers for the three options. High school students have three options. They can take a course at their high school offered by their high school teacher through the institution, and that's what we refer to as our concurrent enrollment. They can take career and technical education. We refer to that as the Excel and CTE. And then sometimes students actually go to the actual campus and take classes directly from the institution, from their faculty. So, and the next page will actually show you the tab. I've tried to circle the tab at the top where it shows the high school. Once you click on that tab, there's just a wealth of information, and I can spend hours in there playing with all of the different tabs that you pull down. But what I'm going to be demonstrating is all of the students together. So any student that took CTE, dual, or concurrent, I'm going to be looking at the head count of all of the students in Kansas. And then I will also look at, excuse me, the credit hours. And then we break it down by race and ethnicity. So the first slide is with the actual data is actually from 2013 to 2018. And the reason this slide is important is 2013 was actually the first year after SB 155 passed and allowed high school students to take the career and technical education courses without paying tuition. So that was a huge bonus for our students. And you can just see that the gradual growth that we had throughout the years. And a lot of it was based on the CTE opportunities that had not been provided before. So the next slide is more current. It's the 2018 through the 2023. And as you will see, COVID, we took a dip, and this is the head count. These are the number of students. So after COVID in AY 2021, we had 32,603 high school students taking some form of higher education courses. But it's exciting to see that 2023, we actually raised the head count to the pre-COVID numbers. So we're heading in the right direction. And if anyone has questions, please just stop me as I'm going along here. So the next slide is the same information, but it is broken down by which institutions are offering these courses. And you can see that our community colleges offer a majority of this, followed by the technical colleges. And those two institutions provide a combined almost 92% of the post-secondary education to our high school students in Kansas. The next slide goes into the state universities. And again, these are all the students, and you can see the head count of the students, a six-year trend, and then we look at a 1-year trend and a 5-year change. So we're increasing. Fort Hays State had a huge increase, and I'm not sure why, but it looks good. And Kansas State had a pretty significant increase too. And the 5-year change, everyone had an increase at the universities. And Washburn does a pretty good job too, as far as the numbers. So the next slide is the community colleges, and it's a six-year data summary of the community colleges and the number of students that have taken courses from each of the institutions, and then again with the 1-year and the 5-year change. Regent Praska, do you have a question?
Yes, on the other slide, thank you very much, Carla.
Sure.
The previous slide, as the numbers indicate, 143% increase for Fort Hays. Do you think it is reflecting the merger of the 2-year college with the state university?
I don't think so. But if someone is on from Fort Hays State, that would be a great time to chime in on this. And the reason I don't think that is because I think AY 23, maybe it hadn't even happened yet.
Right.
Can someone confirm that?
Yeah, Carla, this is Jill from Fort Hays, Jill Arnsdorf, and no, that this and even now that the affiliation has occurred, those numbers will not show up as Fort Hays State University numbers. They will still show up as Fort Hays Tech Northwest and Fort Hays Tech North Central numbers with our affiliates. This number is attributed to a couple things, some different classes that we are offering with our partners, and reflective of a new partner that we've been working with. So
That's
Great.
fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you, Jill. All right, let's go back to the community college slides. Again, this is just a quick summary of each of the community colleges. I would encourage anyone and everyone to take a look at these numbers. This is actually the head count numbers. And then the technical colleges is on the next page. All right. Okay, our next slide shows the actual head count by the percentages by race and ethnicity. You can't see the percentages very well because our bar graph, but a majority of the students that are taking these courses are white. 70% are white, 15% Hispanic, 3% Black, 1% American Indian, Pacific Islander, and then 3% Asian. Those numbers are a little bit below the percentage of students that are in public education according to the oh gosh, it's the National Education Statistics website. So on their website, the white group would be 62.7, Hispanic 20%, Black 6.7, and Asian 2.8. So that would be an area that we would be looking at to increase the underserved population for dual credit, concurrent. And I see something in the chat. Is there a question in the chat or is that a comment? Oh, okay, Regent Thomas. All right. Carrying on, next slide, please. So this is the same information, only it's in numbers. So you can kind of see that the increase in our underserved populations are actually growing at a higher rate than the numbers, the percentage for our white students. I think part of this is our institutions are doing a really good job of trying to reach out to those students. Some are offering free classes, and maybe these are students that weren't taking advantage of the opportunities before. All right, next slide. This is the same information, only it's credit hours. So this is our summary of our entire system, the credit hours that students earned while they were in high school. And then we break it down again. The next slide shows the percentage of students by race and ethnicity, and it's very much the same numbers as before. The enrollment. And then the next slide shows the numbers, the actual numbers of the different ethnic groups. And our final slide talks about how well these students do 3 years after they graduate from high school. So this is our Student Success Index, and it looks at 6 categories, whether the student completed or retained. So they completed at their home institution, they completed within our system, they completed anywhere, somewhere, elsewhere besides our system, or they were retained. They're still enrolled within the home institution, within our system, or they're retained elsewhere. And we have a pretty high success rate. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Misty's going to get a little closer to the institutional data for head count and credit hours. And again, Judd is the expert on this. I rely on Judd to provide the data. But again, it's available on our website at all times. So I would encourage everyone to take advantage of that information that's always available.
Thank you, Carla. Are there any questions from the committee? Carla, I do have one question. When we're looking at the data and it's showing the numbers by race and ethnicity, when it says non-resident alien, what group specifically falls within that? Would that be like perhaps DACA students? Is that who that? Okay. Thank you. Hey, if there are no other questions,
I think there's a
move.
question from Barry Robinson.
Yes, ma'am. Quick
Go ahead.
question. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. In your last slide, you showed the kind of completion rates across the board and where they kind of fell. Is that data also available so that we can break it down to see which races are in your final numbers?
I think so. It's broken down by so many different things. You can break it down by the students, how many hours they took. I will look at that, Barry, because I can't remember.
Okay.
I think it is pretty much once we break it down, we try to break it down everywhere. But I will take a look at that. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. And then my last question would be, are we going to have access to these slides for later use, just to kind of refresh our memories, just in case?
Yes, and it's also, if you on the agenda, if you click on the link in the agenda, it's live. It'll take you right to the slides.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Jesse, did that answer your question?
No, just so sorry for being late. So this was covered before I got here. Was there a slide or information on the intersection between Title I schools and the information we got?
No, that's the Title I is classified at the district level,
Okay.
and we don't have that information, or we
Okay.
don't collect it from our institutions anyway. But I would think that KSDE could possibly have that on their website.
Okay.
Kansas State Department of Ed.
I believe that probably is on the website. So maybe we can look into collecting that data. Are there any other questions? Thank you, Carla. Next, we have the academic year 2023 concurrent dual and CTE enrollment report by institution presented by Misty Knox. Misty?
Yeah, thank you. I'm coming to you from the Fort Hays State University, beautiful campus. They shout out to them for accommodating me in one of their office spaces. Jennifer, you want me to share my screen, or do you want to?
It doesn't matter to me.
I'll go ahead and share my screen. All right, so again, as Regent Mendoza mentioned, this is the academic year 2023 concurrent dual CTE enrollment report by institution. The data from the report can be found on the Kansas Higher Ed Statistics site, KeyStats. Kind of as Carla had mentioned, it's also posted on the website. It was posted in June and can be found under the Academic Affairs tab, under Dual Credit Cooperative Agreements, and then high school enrollments. So this report is organized by category. So we will cover the dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment, Excel and CTE by head count, and then credit hours. Starting with the concurrent enrollment. So concurrent enrollment is a subset of dual credit and means enrollment of high school students in dual credit courses taught by high school teachers during the regular high school day, in which students receive both high school credit and college credit for completing the course. The system-wide concurrent enrollment headcount is up by 5.1%. On the credit hours, you can see our system-wide concurrent credit hours is up by 1.7%. Dual credit enrollment is going to be next. That is a subset of dual credit and means enrollment of high school students in dual credit courses, courses that are taught by a post-secondary educational institution faculty member, in which students receive high school credit and college credit for completing the course. The system-wide dual enrollment headcount is up by 21.6%. The system-wide concurrent credit hours is up by 26%. So Excel and CTE, Carla had mentioned a little about this data. So her data began in 2013, showing that growth due to the Senate Bill 155 funds. So a little bit of history. In 2012, Governor Brownback launched a plan to enhance career and tech ed in Kansas and better prepare high school students for college and careers. Senate Bill 155 came about, was enacted in legislation, and since then has been renamed Excel and CTE, hence the name of the report here today. So Excel and CTE system-wide headcount is up 30.6%. Then the system-wide CTE, Excel and CTE credit hours is up by 25.4%. And that concludes that report. I will stand for questions before moving on to the credit for prior learning report.
I do have a question on these stats. If Chair Mendoza is good. All right.
Go ahead.
So do we look at performance for this particular program across the state universities and the community colleges? And do we have an incentive to grow these programs for these universities and community colleges?
So I believe there is some success metrics listed on our key stats statistics on our website. As far as the incentives to grow outside of time to completion, reducing that time to completion. Carly, do you have anything?
No, we've had, the dual credit steering committee. Misty has reconvened that group and they share best practices and just the relationships that we have with the school districts, and service areas also come into play with that. But we do have quite a few institutions that are offering free courses to students within their service area. I think Butler offers 5 courses to every high school that's eligible, every high school students that's eligible, and Seward County Community College had started offering it at a very reduced rate. This is something that Regent Lane was very passionate about and had a work group, but we just can't seem to get the funding for these courses. The institutions receive funding, partial funding for students taking these courses, but it's an ongoing boost trying to get the numbers, especially to reach the underserved population.
So there's just there's also high schools who kick in a little to help out students in funding those courses as well.
Thank you, ladies. Appreciate it.
In addition to what Carla just mentioned, we did talk about those first 15 hours during our retreat this summer. So I do anticipate further exploration and discussion on how we can kind of spread that across the state as we move through the year. So are there any other questions? Okay, Misty, we'll also be doing the report on credit for prior learning. Go ahead.
So this report is the academic year 2023. It was sent out to our chief academic officers right around May. So credit for prior learning is credit awarded for learning gained outside of the traditional post-secondary academic environment, and it's also aligned with learning outcomes for existing courses at our institutions. So K-Board tracks 15 different types of credit for prior learning, as you can see on your screen here. In academic year 2023, this slide presents the credit hours awarded by sector. We'll then provide a detailed breakdown by university, community college, and technical college. So here is the breakdown from our state universities for credit hour awarded for our credit for prior learning types. And community colleges, total 11,062 credit hours awarded. And for our tech colleges, 1,905. Here is a year-to-year comparison of the credit hours awarded, showing a notable increase from the previous year. In 2022 is around 56,000, 2023 about 81,000. We'll now see the credit for prior learning numbers by head count for the system. So our state university, total head count is there with Washburn University. And for our community colleges and technical colleges. And then again, with our year-to-year comparison of credit for prior learning based on the head count, in 2023, the average was between 9 and 10 credit hours awarded per student. So these are the credit hours by credit for prior learning type, the top types of our sectors. The bolded text numbers indicate the leading credit for prior learning type within each sector. So for technical colleges, the top credit for prior learning type was institutional exams, as indicated at the bottom of the screen there. So this slide presents a year-to-year comparison of our credit for prior learning types, highlighting their changes over time. So you can see Fort Hays State had a substantial increase due to changes when they were switching to their new student information system and how that documentation comes through. And I will stand for questions. This report is located on our website under Academic Affairs, again, credit for prior learning.
Do we have any questions for Misty?
No, thank you.
Right. Thank you, Misty, for the information. All right, let's see. So Academic Affairs staff will now provide updates on system-wide initiatives, starting with the System General Education Council. Dr. Jennifer Bonds-Racky will present us with that information.
Thank you so much, Regent Mendoza. So it will be my pleasure today to share an update with you on the System-Wide Gen Ed Council, as well as our Math Pathways work. Starting first with the System-Wide Gen Ed Council, I'd like to share that the state of Kansas gained national attention on June 24th when Inside Higher Ed published an article titled, quote, Kansas Colleges Remodel Gen Ed Requirements for Fall 24. This article highlights how our work, quote, eases student burden in the transfer process, end quote, and helps prevent loss, thereby reducing financial burden of attending college. I wanted to let you know that I shared this article on my LinkedIn page, and a president at a private college commented, quote, congratulations, this is a brilliant concept and benefits students and the educational system, end quote. It's validating to see the hard work of the board and faculty members across the state receiving national recognition as we launch our inaugural year of the System-Wide Gen Ed. And speaking of the inaugural year, so the System-Wide Gen Ed Council held its first meeting for this academic year on Tuesday, August 27th. During this year, the council will undertake the following key activities charged per policy. First, we will finalize the operating procedures document in September. And second, we will verify the annual submissions of master course lists from institutions in February. As a friendly reminder, a listing of institutions granted exceptions for the current academic year can be found on the KBOR website under the System-Wide Gen Ed heading located on an exceptions subpage. Similarly, there's a listing of the only 2 approved deviations. These are the KU-BS and pharmaceutical studies for students enrolled in the doctorate only, and KU-MC-BS in clinical lab sciences. And the location of these approved deviations can be found in the same location as the granted exceptions for the current academic year. In terms of Math Pathways, I'd like to begin by highlighting 2 key successes. The first key success is related to Gateway Math course selection. Over the past 18 months, faculty across Kansas collaborated by disciplines to identify the most suitable Gateway Math course for students in their programs. This consensus ensures that students can transfer within the state, confident that their math requirements remain consistent. This is especially beneficial for our community college students. I'm pleased to report that all programs have selected Gateway Math courses, and these decisions are available on the KBOR website. Another key success is related to multiple measures placement. Later in our meeting, you'll review recommendations from this committee on placement into Gateway Math courses without prerequisite developmental support. Faculty and staff spent 7 months refining these recommendations to create a holistic approach to assessing college readiness in math, moving beyond reliance on standardized testing alone. In late June, KBOR staff, 1 representative from a 4-year institution and 1 representative from a 2-year institution, attended the State Higher Education Executive Officers Association Conference, where we set a goal to, quote, develop a statewide professional development training series for math pathways during fall 2024, end quote. This goal aligns with our performance agreements, ensuring that K-Board delivers the required professional development for math pathways. The resulting training series is designed to provide targeted support to various stakeholders during the system-wide math pathways rollout. And I'd like to highlight a few key elements of this series. Number one, administrative teams. Professional development for our executive implementation teams from all 32 institutions began on August 20th, with monthly meetings focused on institutional decisions and compliance with performance agreements. Next, math faculty. So we have professional development sessions for math faculty led by Whitney Turner, a math faculty member from Johnson County Community College, and Connie Richardson, our consultant from the Dana Center. These sessions will feature monthly meetings focused on co-requisite development classes and effective instructional strategies. And finally, I'd like to call your attention to the webinar for all higher education employees. On October 8th, we're offering a professional development opportunity open to anyone in higher education interested in supporting student success initiatives. The webinar will align with the board's strategic plan, Building a Future. These are just 3 of the professional development opportunities available. For more information and other opportunities categorized by stakeholder group, please visit the Math Pathways Professional Development and Implementation subpage on the K-Board website. Are there any questions around the system-wide gen ed or math pathways before we update you on English placement measures? Thanks so much. I'll turn things over to Sam.
Thanks, Jen. So I'm providing an update on the English Course Placement Measures Committee. Toward the end of June, we put out a call for members for an English Course Placement Measures Committee, and we put the committee together, and we have representation that mirrors that of SCOCO membership. So that means we have a member from each state university, 4 members from community colleges, 1 member from a technical college, and also a member from Washburn University. We held the first meeting on July 29th, where the committee heard background on the importance of co-requisite support and establishing system-wide English course placement measures, as well as some background on policy. We held a second meeting on August 23rd, and we began discussion in earnest about placement measures. The committee's charge is to establish system-wide placement measures for students to place into English Composition 1 without co-requisite support, with the understanding that students who don't meet system-wide measures or institutional measures will be placed into English Composition 1, but with co-requisite support. Our awesome data research and planning unit is working up data on ACT scores and high school GPA and how they are related to outcomes in English Composition 1, which we're hoping they can then share with the committee at the next meeting, which is September 12th. The committee plans to wrap up their work by or before the end of this semester. And that concludes my update on the English Course Placement Measures Committee. I can jump into the update on performance reports if that pleases the chair.
Before we move on, I just want to, I know there's been tremendous amount of work that's gone into all of these areas, especially over the past year, and we've made considerable progress. The academic affairs team has worked very hard and diligently to get these things done along with committee members. So I know all of that is student focused towards student success. I just want to thank all of you for that. So,
thank you. We really appreciate sorry.
No, go ahead.
We really appreciate the committee members' work on these endeavors.
Yes, absolutely. All right. If there aren't any other questions or comments, we can move on to the performance reports.
Great. Okay, so as you all probably know, we changed the performance agreement model recently to reflect 4 proven practices that are expected to move the needle on building a future. Those 4 proven practices include co-requisite support, developmental education for both math and English, math pathways, or aligning math general education courses to students' academic and career interests, system-wide course placement measures for math and English gateway courses, and finally, the use of academic degree maps. So this year was largely a planning year for most of these things. And for the AY 2024 performance reports, institutions were asked to provide 5 things. The first was the process and list of people on campus who will do the work to create and approve gateway math courses for math pathways into the degree programs. The process and list of people on campus who will work to create and improve co-requisite math support developmental education. The third item, the process and list of people on campus who will work to create and approve co-requisite English support developmental education. The fourth item, a list of people on campus who will participate in professional development sessions for the previous 3 items, and a plan to ensure anyone unable to attend those meetings or webinars will receive the information missed. And finally, that 5th component is a link to all the degree maps, or basically a landing page on the website from which a person can find a degree map for any program on campus. So each of these 5 components is worth 20% each for this year's performance reports. The reports themselves were due July 1st, and this year's report was very different from previous years, as many of you recall. So there was a learning curve really for all of us. But for the most part, the review process with academic affairs went really smoothly. Because each institution was asked to address the same 5 components, we aren't planning on asking institutions to provide a verbal report on their reports this year like we have done in past years, so long as that is okay with BASC. That would require a significant portion of the next 4 meetings, as it has in previous years. Instead, we would propose that we provide an executive level summary to BASC at an upcoming meeting in November. We would include background information on the new performance agreements, and we would summarize funding recommendations, along with providing a link to all of those institutions' reports so that BASC members do have direct access to those reports. We would plan then to pass the summary on to the board after BASC approval, either in December or early in the spring semester. And that concludes my update. I would stand for questions.
Committee members, are there any questions on the proposed executive level reports versus the verbal reports? Okay, I think we can move forward with that, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Sam?
Nothing from me, Regent Mendoza.
All right, so we will move on to other business. Under other business, we have one item that requires the committee's approval. Dr. Jennifer Bonds-Racke will provide background on the system-wide mathematics placement measures. Dr. Bonds-Racke.
Thank you so much. I know that you have the issue paper already available in front of you, but I do want to briefly review it and highlight a few key elements before we move into the action or voting portion. So as a summary, KBOR policy specifies that our system-wide course placement measures will be in place for gateway math courses, and the placement measures will be informed by recommendations from a system-wide math course placement committee. So to that end, a system-wide course placement measure committee was formed in February, and that committee met 7 times during the spring and summer. They developed recommendations, and the academic affairs staff is pleased to support those recommendations for approval that they're bringing forward. In terms of background, I would say that there's 2 key things about the work that I'd like to highlight. First, this work really moves us from a very narrow, focused assessment on placement into courses without co-requisite development that would rely on a single standardized measure to a very holistic approach that allows students to demonstrate college readiness in a variety of ways using both a standardized test as well as non-standardized test measures. In addition to this moving us away from an over-reliance on standardized assessment, it also allows us to have a streamlined process where we can communicate to our K-12 partners what exactly we mean by college readiness in math courses, and that all of our institutions would use the same measures to determine college readiness. Therefore, the K-Board policy was updated on May 17th, 2023 to reflect this change in thinking. As I mentioned previously, that committee was convened in February of 2024, and President Flanders attended the first meeting to provide the charge. Per K-Board policy, each student who meets either a system-wide course placement measure or an institutionally designated course placement measure would then be eligible to enroll in the Gateway course without developmental support. And so what you see on page 2 of the issue paper are the recommendations that the committee is proposing. First, you'll see the recommendations for college algebra. And I would just like to mention here that a student need only document that they have achieved one of these scores, not all of them, to be able to enter into the college course without correct developmental support. And there's also the possibility that an institution could still retain an institutional measure. And that would also include professional discretion using research or some sort of evidence-based practice. I would also like to note that the reason that the committee felt strongly about having different scores for college algebra versus contemporary math and elementary statistics does not have to do with the rigor or level of the academic course. They view the rigor of all 3 courses as being at the same level. However, the standardized test scores and some of the other measures listed do not measure the traditional concepts in contemporary math and elementary statistics the way that they do in college algebra. And so therefore they felt the score should reflect this. So unless it pleases the committee, I won't read for you the specific scores. Those are laid out for you. But again, a student would only need to document that they have achieved proficiency in one of those scores. And this also allows institutions to really utilize making decisions with multiple measures in mind. So if we have more than one data point on a student, the institution has the academic freedom to be able to place the student into the appropriate course based on the information they have available to them. I'm going to turn this over to VP Mulholland in case he would like to add anything to the conversation before the committee considers the recommendation. VP Mulholland.
Thank you, Dr. Bonzraki. I don't have anything to add other than to thank, first of all, the faculty that worked on this to develop the measures to determine these thresholds for each of the various measures, and also to extend my gratitude to all of the academic affairs staff who have worked on this. They certainly make my job much easier. I would like to emphasize something that Jen said, and the idea of multiple measures is not that we have more than one measurement available to determine how to place students, but the idea really is that each institution, if a student does not meet those thresholds, that the institution then should employ additional measures to make a judgment, to make a determination that the student, based upon, say, the combination of an ACT math subscore and his or her high school GPA, that student has a strong likelihood, a good chance of being successful in the credit-bearing course. So these are not just, you hit it and you're in, and you miss it and you're in the co-rec model. It gives the institutions the opportunity to look at other criteria, other factors to make a decision based on evidence and past experience that student has a good chance, a very strong likelihood of being successful in that course. So I'm really pleased with the progress that has been made, and where we are with this. Again, my thanks to the faculty, to everyone who's been engaged in this, and I'm looking forward to start charting the results and seeing what difference it's going to make.
Regent Mendoza, this is Regent Johnston. I just wanted to make a couple comments. First, I want to thank the placement committee because I know that there's been a lot of hard work that has gone in to making sure that this works. I think that they have done a great job. I think it strengthens the general education common requirement that we have now. And I'm very appreciative of the multiple measures because I think that is extremely important to give the individual institutions an opportunity to look at individual students and make those kinds of calls. And it especially, I think, helps those students who have not been in school for a while. So non-traditional students and students that may not have had the strongest of high school experiences, especially when it comes to math. I would also just like to say that I'm looking forward to data that shows how this proves out. And I hope that it will prove that in terms of student success, if we look at this data compared to what we had before, which wasn't a system-wide requirement, that it shows that we're helping more students make it through these gateway courses. And so if I'm sure we're planning on there as Rusty just said, but I hope that we as a committee can receive an update at least in a couple of years about where we're at in terms of student success when these measures have been put in place.
Thank you for that, Regent Johnston. Are there any other questions on this topic?
Regent Mendoza, this is Jen Roberts from KU. I wanted a quick clarification. My assumption was exactly what Regent Johnston said, that we're looking at this and the multiple measures at an individual student level. Is that accurate, or are there other institutional level designations that might come to pass? For example, an institution sets different metrics for all students rather than individuals that are being evaluated on their individual experience. I'm just curious how this gets implemented as it goes out, if it's going to be institution-wide or individual.
I'm not sure, Dr. Roberts, I'm following your question. I think my response and our response is that it's really at a individual student level. So a student who has a 23 ACT math score, that's all the evaluation or assessment that would be needed to place that student into a credit-bearing mathematics course, whether it's college algebra, contemporary math, or elementary statistics. If that score was less than that, 18 or 19, let's say, for example, the institution can then use high school GPA, another measure, something ALEC, something they use institution-wide to determine whether that student should be placed in the credit-bearing course or the co-requisite model course. I'm not sure I'm answering your question because I'm not sure how the other assessments or other evaluations you referred to, what that might be.
Well, I mean, I think I'm asking whether or not an instance could happen where an institution sets a different metric from the system-wide metric that then overrides the system-wide metric and isn't, and then gets detached from that holistic metric. So they set, let's say, a lower GPA for all students rather than for individual students within that constellation of holistic measures. That's what I'm sort of wondering as we implement this, like where does the individual and the institution, how do those things continue to connect back to the system-wide measures in a coherent way? And I think it gets back to Regent Johnson, we need to measure it, but I guess I'm asking how you're going to kind of measure this and keep track of it as it goes along.
Chair Mendoza, if I could make a comment.
Yes, of course.
I completely understand what you're saying, Jennifer. And I think maybe what would be helpful would be that as we keep track of the information in terms of student success and completion of these courses, we can keep track of what the placement requirement was to get them in and from each institution. And I think that would bear out in a couple of years what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. I don't think that was certainly, that's not how I read the intent as to be that the institution gets to set its own. It's just if you have these individual cases. But I do think that it's important that you bring that up. And I think that hopefully data in at least 2 or 3 years would be able to point to whether we have some specific, like you said, star in our constellation that may be doing something a little bit differently, and that somehow affects the completion rates of these gateway courses. And probably another interesting data point that we would need is how do they do in the next course as they move forward, because these are gateway courses. So to me, if we haven't collected that data in the past, I think that would be important data to see what what their particular requirement was to get in, if that's possible, and then success rates. But thank you for your comment.
And thank you. That helps. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay. If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the system-wide mathematics placement measures.
So moved.
I have a second.
And I'll second.
Okay, and all in favor, by saying
Aye.
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 All right, motion passes. Okay, I believe we are ready now for announcements. So within the agenda, I just want to remind everyone of the BASC meeting schedule moving forward for academic year 2025. This meeting will meet next on September 18th in the KBOR offices in Topeka. Please make note of the starting time, which is 11 a.m., which is different from last year. And as you may have noticed, our virtual meetings are also different this year. So we're changing it up a little bit, but you can refer to that schedule within today's agenda. I also want to remind everyone that the annual Kansas Core Outcomes Groups, or KCOG, conference will be held virtually on October 11th. And more information is available on the KBOR website. Are there any other questions or announcements? Okay, if there's no other business to come before the committee, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I can move.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor, signify by
Aye.
saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all.